So, hello friends, I am Sunita Padkule, working in Mechanical Department of Jaywantrao Sound College of Engineering, Hadapsar. So, in the earlier lectures, we have studied fundamentals of vibrations, and after that, undamped free vibrations. Okay, we have solved many problems also on undamped free vibrations. Now today, we are going to study damped free vibrations. Okay. So, what do you mean by damped free vibration? Go by the name only. The vibrations which system executes under the damping system is known as damped vibrations. So, if damping is present, it is damped vibration. Damping is absent, it is undamped vibration. Now, damped vibrations may be free vibrations or forced vibrations. So, if no force is acting, then it is free damped vibration. And if external force is acting on the system and damping is present, so that is known as a damped forced vibration. In this unit, we are going to study damped free vibrations. Okay. Damping, what is damping? It is nothing but resistance offered by a body to the motion of a vibratory system. So it is nothing but the resistance to the motion. That is called as a damping. For example, if we drive our car in a water, what we feel that there is a resistance offered to the wheels of the car by the water. So naturally, motion of the car is reduced. So this is nothing but the damping provided by the water to the motion of the wheels of the car. Okay. Second example is, you can say the shock absorber used in automobile. Okay. So the shock absorber are used to control the vibrations, to reduce the vibrations. Now, the rate at which the amplitude decays depends upon the type and amount of damping in the system. Okay, that means what? See, why do you provide the damping? Because we have to control the damping, we have to reduce the damping. We have to control the vibrations or we have to reduce the vibrations. Okay, so if we want to reduce the vibrations, in each cycle there is a reduction taking place. Okay, so the rate at which the amplitude decays, okay, amplitude means it is the maximum displacement of that vibration and we have to control this amplitude. So the rate at which the amplitude decays, it depends on what type of damping we provide and how much is the amount of damping we are providing. Okay, so there is a reduction in amplitude over every cycle of vibration. Okay, so the focus of our study for damped free vibration is having two aspects. Okay, first is we have to study the frequency of damped free vibrations. Like in part A, we have studied how to determine the natural frequency of the system. So like this here also, we want to determine that what is the frequency of damped free vibration. And second aspect is what is the rate of decay in each cycle, because basically we want to reduce the vibration. So how much is rate we want so that it should be reducing each and every cycle. Okay. The main advantage of providing damping in mechanical system is just to control the amplitude of vibrations so that resonance may be avoided. See, vibrations can never be completely eliminated, but it can be only reduced or it can be only controlled. So that is the main advantage of the damping. Okay, so let us see the types of damping. Mainly there are four types. First is viscous damping. Second is column or dry friction damping. Third is structural damping. And fourth is non-linear or slip or interfacial damping. Now for your syllabus, there are only first two types. That is viscous damping and second is dry friction or column damping. So these two dampings, that is just an introduction. That means you should know what are the various types of damping. That is only. Otherwise, these two, that is structural damping and non-linear damping, is not for your syllabus. Okay, so the major focus of damping is on viscous damping. Okay, say 90% of the damping is viscous damping we are going to study in this unit, and say 10% is dry friction damping. Okay, so let us see now. In this lecture, we are just going to introduce about the viscous damping. But in further all lectures, we are going to study in detail about the viscous damping. Okay, so this is the most important type of damping and occurs for small velocities in lubricated sliding surfaces. Okay, so if you imagine that there is a cylinder and there is a piston and the oil is there inside the cylinder, and if that piston is moving inside a cylinder in the in that oil which is present in the system, okay, we can imagine there is a resistance offered to the motion of the piston. Okay, so this is nothing but the viscous damping. Means there is a viscous fluid present, and with the help of that fluid we are offering the resistance, we are offering the damping to that vibratory system. So this is characterized by fact that the resistance is directly proportional to the velocity of the moving body. Okay, see, we in the part A, what we have studied, that there were only two elements, mass and spring. So mass, by virtue of the mass, inertia force comes into picture, and by virtue of spring, spring force comes into picture, because spring, what is the function of the spring? To store the potential energy. Okay, now here third element comes into picture in damping, that is known as a damper. Okay, and this damping force is always proportional to the velocity of the vibrations or velocity of the object. Okay, so whenever you say damping, velocity comes into picture. Whenever you say spring, more displacement comes into picture. So spring force is K into X, that is stiffness into displacement, and damping force is equal to C into X dot, that is damping coefficient into velocity. This we are going to study further. Okay, so this is characterized by the velocity of the moving body. Okay, the constant of proportionality is termed as damping coefficient C. Okay, right now this is a very new term to you, damping coefficient C. C is the notation used for damping coefficient. Okay, that we'll see in detail what do you mean by damping coefficient. But right now you just remember here, damping coefficient C is constant here. Okay, that means the damping coefficient is the damping force per unit velocity. Okay, what I told you, that F, suppose it is a damping force, is equal to C into X dot. C is the damping coefficient, X dot is the velocity. So how will you define C, that is damping coefficient? It is force per unit velocity. Okay, see, this is the system, vibratory system. Okay, now this is a spring having stiffness K. This is the notation of the damper. It is denoted by always C. So this is denoted by a piston and cylinder. Okay, and this is the mass which is vibrating. So as damped system is represented by a schematic mathematical model as shown in figure. So this is the mathematical model of any simple spring mass damper system. Okay, so here there are three elements of the vibratory system now: spring, mass and damper. Okay, now see, there are two systems, translatory system and torsional system. Okay, how do you define, or how do you define the damping coefficient for translatory system and for torsional system? Okay, as I told you, this F is the damping force. So this damping force is proportional to velocity. So F is proportional to velocity, that is F is proportional to X dot. So F is equal to C into X dot. So what do you mean by this C? This is nothing but damping coefficient which is constant. So C is equal to F upon X dot, that is force per unit velocity. What's the unit of this C? Newton second per meter. Unit of F is Newton and unit of X dot is meter per second. So unit of damping coefficient is Newton second per meter. Now apply the analogy for torsional system. F is replaced by torque, X dot is replaced by theta dot. So in torsional system, torque is proportional to theta dot. Okay, that is angular velocity. Actually, we call it omega in theory of motion, but here we call it as a theta dot. Okay, then T is equal to Ct into theta dot. T is the suffix for torsional. Okay, so what do you mean by Ct? T upon theta dot means it is torque per unit angular velocity, T upon theta dot. So what is the unit of this Ct? Newton meter second per radian. Unit of torque is Newton meter. Unit of theta dot is radian per second. So unit of Ct is Newton meter second per radian. Okay. Now there are two important types of viscous dampers. Okay, which we are going to study. First is fluid dashpot damping, and second is eddy current damping. Okay. Now for your syllabus, that is only fluid dashpot damping. These are having the many applications of this fluid dashpot damping. In practically we are using fluid dashpot damping only. Okay, there are eddy current damping is also there, but the application of eddy current damping is less. So let us first study the fluid dashpot damping. Okay, it's a type of viscous damping. So you have learned in fluid mechanics the viscosity property. Okay, so here in this fluid dashpot damping, viscosity is the main property by virtue of which it offers resistance to the motion of one layer over the other layer. That is, what is the fluid is flowing, you know, viscosity is present in the fluid. So if you consider this diagram, see, this lower plate is a fixed plate and this upper plate is moving with certain velocity x dot. Okay, and the distance between two plates is h. Okay, and the fluid is flowing in between these two plates. So you can imagine the layer which is directly in contact with fixed plate, it is having zero velocity, and the layer which is directly contact with the moving plate, it is having the velocity equal to x dot. Okay, but what will happen with the layers which are in between? See, velocity, as you go above, the velocity of these layers will be increasing. Okay, so 0 to x dot. If you draw the graph of this one, it is an inclined line. Okay, so if we imagine now, so what you can write down here, you can apply Newton's law of viscosity for the fluid flowing between the two plates. Okay, so what is the Newton's law of viscosity? Tau is proportional to dx by dh. Okay, tau is shear stress in the fluid. So tau is proportional to dx dot by dh. Therefore, tau is equal to mu into dx dot by dh. Okay, so what is tau? Basically force upon area. So area of the plate and force which required to flow the fluid. So F upon A is equal to mu into dx dot upon dh. Okay, so F is equal to mu A dh into dx dot. Now see, these three parameters are constant. Mu is, what is mu? Coefficient of viscosity. Okay, A is area of plate, and dh, actually it is a h, that is distance between the two plates. So this is constant, mu A into h. Okay, so this is constant, we can call it as a C. That is nothing but the damping coefficient. So again, you got the same equation. F is equal to C into x dot. Okay, so what is the basic damping for C into x dot? So now we have proved that for this viscous damping, that is fluid dashpot, F is equal to C into x dot. Okay, so this is the damping force is equal to C into x dot, where C is equal to mu A into h, which is constant. Okay, so C we are going to study in detail afterwards, that is a damping coefficient. Okay, now second type of viscous damping is eddy current damping. Okay, this theory already you know, you will learn it in maybe in 9th or 10th standard. What do you mean by eddy current? Okay, only here we are going to see with the help of this eddy current induced how it provides the damping. Okay, so consider this figure. There are two permanent magnets having north and south pole, and then this is the object which is moving inside in between north and south, means in between the permanent magnets in the vertical direction. So direction of motion of the object is vertical. Okay, and direction of magnetic flux is horizontal. Okay, so what will happen? So what is the basic principle of this generation of AD current? Okay, if a non-ferrous conducting object such as a plate or rod is moved in a direction perpendicular to the lines of magnetic flux, direction of magnetic flux is this, and we are moving object perpendicular to it, that is vertical. What will happen then? This produces the magnetic flux is produced by permanent magnet. Then as the object moves, current is induced in the object, and this current is proportional to the velocity of the object. See, I have highlighted here velocity. Okay, because here it is a damping, so damping is always proportional to the velocity. So this current is proportional to the velocity of the object and is the induced AD current. Okay, and this setups a magnetic field so as to oppose the original magnetic field. Okay, so here the resistance comes into picture. So this provides the resistance to the motion of the object in the magnetic field. Okay, so originally there is a magnetic field set up by the permanent magnets, and as you move the object inside that one, that will produce the AD current damping, AD current, and that AD current will produce the magnetic field that is nothing but the resistance offered to the motion of the object. Okay, so this resistance is known as a damping force, which is proportional to the velocity of the moving object. Okay, so this is a mechanical type of viscous damping. Okay, there can be other type of viscous damping also. Okay, so this is basically used in vibrometer. What is a vibrometer? This is an instrument which is used to measure the vibrations. Okay, then so first type you understood. First type of damping is viscous damping, which we are going to study in detail after this lecture. Okay, that too only dashpot, fluid dashpot damping, not AD current damping. That is not for your syllabus. Okay, now the second type of damping is Coulomb or dry friction damping. Actually, this is only the revision for you. You already have learned what are the different laws of friction, etc. Okay, so this type of damping occurs when two machine parts rub against each other, dry or unlubricated. You know, then and then only friction will occur between the two surfaces. Okay, so the damping resistance in this case is practically constant. Okay, because mu is constant. What is mu? Coefficient of friction. Here frictional force comes into picture. Okay, so this is now this when two dry surfaces rub against each other, then a frictional force F is acted upon, which is proportional to the normal reaction Rn. See, look to the, consider this diagram. Okay, here this is the object which is supposed to move towards the right, so its velocity will be in the right direction, that we have shown at the x dot. Okay, so what are the different forces acting on this object then? Mg is the weight and Rn is the normal reaction. Okay, as this moving object is moving towards right, so frictional force will be generated towards left. It will oppose the motion, it will oppose the velocity of the object. So this is the frictional force F. What is the magnitude of frictional force? Mu into Rn. Okay, so this damping which results because of the frictional force is called as a Coulomb damping or dry friction damping. So already you have studied this theory. Now here we are going to study that how frictional force is has provided the damping. Okay, so following are the two important observations for Coulomb damping, which if we compare this with the viscous damping. Okay, for viscous damping we are going to study it later on, but right now today we are going to start and finish Coulomb damping, because I told you it is hardly 10% of the syllabus of the damping. Okay, so what are the two important observations if we compare Coulomb damping with viscous damping? The first one is that in Coulomb damping, the difference between any two successive amplitudes is constant. Right now, I know you cannot understand the meaning of this one, but I'm sure when at the end of the lecture, okay, you will understand the meaning of this one. Okay, because we are going to consider the mathematical part, and after that you will understand what is the meaning of this statement. the difference between any two successive amplitudes is constant, and that is equal to 4F upon K. We are going to prove. You will understand at the end of the lecture. Okay. And second observation is that in Coulomb damping, the body once disturbed from the equilibrium position may finally come to rest position either in equilibrium position or in displaced position, depending upon what is the initial amplitude and how much amount of friction present. That means what? If that block, if suppose this is vibrating, now assume this is the equilibrium position, okay? And if we disturb this system, that means if we provide the force so that this block can vibrate on the surface, okay? So this block, when it will come to the rest position, because of the friction, because of that frictional say damping, so it may come to the rest position at any position, maybe here, maybe at right side, or maybe in equilibrium position. Okay, but this doesn't happen in viscous damping. Okay, system will always come to the rest position at equilibrium position only in viscous damping. But what happens in frictional damping? It may come to the rest position at any position whenever that frictional force will be larger than the spring force. That we'll see later on. Okay, so these two are the important observations. Now, we are going to derive the equation of motion for Coulomb damping. Okay, so consider this system. Now see, here there are three possible cases I have shown. Consider the first case, it is equilibrium position. Okay, that means what? No force is applied, no vibrations are taking place, system is steady. So this is the equilibrium position. Okay, I have drawn the line here showing the equilibrium position. Okay, so in the equilibrium position, that means when the block is steady, there is no frictional force. So F is equal to 0. So there are only these two elements. Okay, block and this spring. Okay, so if at all, if you, for this steady system, if you apply the Newton's second law of motion, okay, what is it? Mx double dot is equal to minus kx. So your equation of motion will be mx double dot plus kx is equal to 0 for steady, when frictional force is 0. That means it is not moving. Okay, consider the second case. You have displaced this object towards right. Okay, and it is moving still towards right. Maybe its extreme right position somewhere here. Okay, now it started moving towards right. Okay, so mass in moving to the right. Mass is moving to the right. This is the case. Okay, now imagine what are the forces acting on this block then? Mx double dot, which is the inertia force. If you draw the free body diagram of this block, okay, what are the forces acting? As it is moving towards right, its inertia force is towards right. Spring is getting stretched, so spring force will be towards left. And as it is moving towards right, frictional force will be opposing, that is towards left. Okay, so apply the Newton's second law of motion. Inertia force is equal to summation of all the forces. Say right side direction, I have considered the positive. So mx double dot is equal to minus kx minus f, because these two forces are acting towards left. Okay, so if you bring this to the left hand side, what is the equation? Mx double dot plus kx plus f is equal to 0. What is f? Frictional force. Okay, now consider the third case. Mass is moving to the left. See, already mass is on the right hand side. This is your equilibrium position. Mass has displaced towards right. Say it has reached to the extreme right position, and then it has started his journey, return journey. So like it is moving towards left now. Okay, so what are the forces acting? Again, as it has already shifted towards right, its inertia force will be towards right only. Okay, then spring is again stretched, already in stretched condition, so spring force will be towards left only. But this frictional force is towards right, because your body at present is moving towards left, so frictional force will be towards right. Okay, so again applying Newton's second law of motion, Inertia force is equal to summation of all the forces. Right hand side direction is positive, so mx double dot is equal to minus kx plus f, because your force is now towards right. So consider taking this into left hand side. What we are writing, mx double dot plus kx minus f is equal to 0. See, compare these two equations. Okay, if the body, in both the cases, body is displaced towards right, that means from the equilibrium position it is towards right only. But in second case, body is moving towards right. In third case, body is moving towards left. It is returning to the equilibrium position, and in second case it is going away from the equilibrium position. So what is the equation of motion in both the cases? Mx double dot plus kx plus or minus f. See, I have written here. Okay, so what is the equation of motion for Coulomb damping? Mx double dot plus kx plus or minus f is equal to 0. Okay, depending on whether it is going away from the equilibrium position or returning to the equilibrium position. That according to that one, plus or minus sign is there. So F is the frictional force which is constant, that is equal to mu into Rn. Okay, now we have to find out for this equation what is the frequency with which your object will vibrate. Okay, like in undamped free vibration, we have, what was our equation of motion for undamped free vibration? Mx double dot plus kx is equal to 0. So what was the natural frequency with which object was vibrating? Omega n is equal to square root of k upon m. So here, as we have, as the damping is present in the system, that is dry friction damping, Coulomb damping, what is the frequency with which your system will vibrate, that we have to find out. That means we have to find out the equation for omega n. Okay, so consider this equation. Okay, say mx double dot plus k is equal to f, any equation, whether a body moving towards left or moving towards right. Okay, but to avoid negative sign initially, otherwise you may get confused, so we are assuming that your body is already displaced towards right and it is returning back to the equilibrium position. Okay, so that means it is moving towards left. So what equation we got applying Newton's second law? Mx double dot is equal to minus k plus f minus kx. Here x should be there, I forgot to write down x. So keep f on right hand side only. Okay, so mx double dot plus kx is equal to f. Okay, now divide by the same. X double dot plus k upon mx is equal to f upon m. Okay, now bring this f upon m on left hand side, and for these two terms you take common k upon m. Okay, so x double dot plus k upon m is common. So what will remain in the bracket? For this term it is x minus, for this term, because when it comes to left hand side it will become minus, and see I have taken common k upon m. M has come out of bracket. Okay, but k I have multiplied, so here I have to divide. So what is the equation? X double dot plus k upon m into bracket x minus f upon k is equal to 0. Okay, now instead of, let us assume x minus f upon k is equal to y. Okay, because f upon k is constant, f is the frictional force which is constant, k is the stiffness of the spring which is constant. So if we assume x minus f upon k is any other parameter, say y. Okay, differentiate, what you are getting? X dot is equal to y dot, because f upon k is constant, and further x double dot is equal to y double dot. Okay, so now write down this equation in terms of y. So write down x double dot is equal to y double dot, and here write down x, or replace x by y. Okay, so putting these x dot and x double dot, these values here. So y double dot plus k upon m as it is, and x minus f upon k is y is equal to 0. Now see, is this equation familiar to you? Okay, is it not the equation of SHM? We have studied what was the equation of motion, equation of SHM in our regular term of x double dot plus omega n square x is equal to 0. So only the thing is that here instead of x, the parameter is y. So y double dot plus omega n square into y is equal to 0. This is nothing but the equation of SHM, where y is equal to, say, x minus f upon k. Okay, so what is the equation of, what is the natural frequency? See this one, k upon m. So omega n is equal to square root of k upon m. This is the natural frequency. Similarly, for other case also, when the mass is moving towards right, we will get the same frequency. Omega n is equal to square root of k upon m. Okay. So what is the meaning of this one? See this diagram. Okay. See, if we don't provide damping, okay, what will happen? The vibe in ideal condition, that means no friction is present, these vibrations will be taking place equal amplitude in every cycle. Okay, that means if I draw the line joining all these amplitudes, I will get a horizontal straight line. That happens in undamped free vibration. But here we are providing damping. That means we are providing here friction, or whatever the friction force is there, that we are considering. Okay, so what will happen? In each cycle there is a reduction in amplitude. See, cycle start from here. Okay, we have displaced the block from the equilibrium position at certain distance. So consider this one. In this, so cycle starts from this point and then it will end here. First cycle will end here. See, what is the say amplitude? Initially some amplitude was there, and see the amplitude in say at the end of the first cycle, see there is a reduction. Again, if you consider the second cycle, starts from here, end here, again there is a reduction. Consider third cycle, start from here, end here, again there is a reduction. That means what? In every cycle there is a reduction in amplitude. Okay, and how much is that reduction? 4f upon k. This we are going to derive this equation now. Okay, that reduction in each cycle is constant, and that is equal to 4f upon k. This is applicable to Coulomb's damping or dry friction damping. Okay, so in the Coulomb damping, the frequency of vibration of the system is same as natural frequency of the undamped system omega n. We have seen here. So friction, whether you consider the friction or neglect the friction, your system will vibrate with the same natural frequency. Omega n is equal to square root of k upon m. Okay, there is no other frequency. So system will vibrate with the same natural frequency, omega n. Okay, now thus Coulomb damping frequency of vibration is same as the natural frequency of undamped system. Okay, but the amplitude of vibration will be reduced in every cycle. By what amount I told you? 4f upon k, which is constant. The motion will stop when frictional force F will be larger than spring force. Now you will ask the doubt, frictional force is constant, so how it will be larger? Frictional force is constant. What is varying? See here, spring force, K delta. What is delta? It is a displacement of the spring. See, in the first cycle, spring displacement was more. As in every cycle, there is a reduction in motion, okay, reduction in amplitude. Spring displacement will also be reducing. So this delta represent spring deflection. So as this reduces, spring force will also reduce. So whenever the spring force is just equal to frictional force or less than frictional force, at that moment system, that block will stop vibrating. Understood? So, and that position may be any position. At the position where the spring force will be just less than the frictional force, at that moment block will stop. Okay, so this is the say stopping of the block. Now we are going to study the reduction in amplitude Coulomb damping. What I told you, that reduction in amplitude is constant, that is 4f upon k. Now we are going to derive this equation. Many times this is asked in the examination, and very simple derivation. Okay, so consider this diagram. See, same diagram I have drawn, but I have shown only one cycle. Okay, say start from point A, cycle starts from point A, amplitude. Okay, we have moved the block, suppose towards extreme left. Okay, so A represent this A position. Okay, consider there are two diagrams. One is represented by sinusoidal wave and other is represented by SHM. Okay, so A is the extreme left position, suppose. Then block started moving. Okay, after half cycle, it will come to the position B. So here also in this diagram, right hand side diagram, consider, say this is the mean position or equilibrium position. I have displaced the block from mean position to extreme left position A. So my cycle starts from A. I am considering the cycle starts from A. Okay, so now block will start moving towards right. Okay, because it has reached to the extreme left position. Okay, because its kinetic energy is zero now, it has maximum potential energy. Now it will start going to the equilibrium position, start returning to the equilibrium position because it has zero kinetic energy. Okay, then it will move towards right, it will come to the equilibrium position. What will happen? At equilibrium position, it will not stop because it has certain inertia still. So because of that inertia force, it will go towards right, and then it will again reach to the extreme right position, that is say B. Okay, now I am going to consider only this half cycle from motion of the object from A to B. Okay, now if you compare the distance from mean position to A and mean position to B, which will be lesser? XB, because there is a friction we are going to consider. So every cycle, there is a reduction, there is a friction loss is there. So due to that frictional loss, the motion will be reduced. So XA will be always larger than XB. Okay, in every cycle this will go on reducing. When again block will be moving here, no, see that I have shown here by C point. So when object will move from B to C point in left hand side diagram, again there is a reduction in amplitude. Again when point will move from C to D, there is a reduction in amplitude. In every cycle there is a reduction in amplitude, and now here we are going to consider on the half cycle. Okay, so from A to B, from here extreme left to extreme right. Okay, now what is the total energy when your block is at left hand side? Potential energy stored in the spring. Okay, there is a zero kinetic energy and potential energy is maximum, which is stored in the spring. So how much is that potential energy? See, UA is equal to 1/2 kx square. Now this x we have denoted by XA, distance of point A, extreme left position, from mean position. So potential energy in the spring when block is at extreme left position is 1/2 kxa square. Okay, now the block started moving towards right. When it will reach to right, extreme right position, that is at B position, what is the potential energy at that position? UB is equal to 1/2 xb square. Okay, xb square. So what is xb? Is the distance from equilibrium position of point B. Okay, now what is the loss in energy in half cycle? That means when your block will move from extreme left to extreme right, that is from position A to B, there is a loss in energy. Okay, how much is that loss in energy? UA minus UB, that is 1/2 kxa square minus 1/2 kxb square. Okay, so that is equal to 1/2 k into bracket xa square minus xb square. Okay, open this bracket. What you will get? Loss in energy in half cycle is equal to 1/2 k xa plus xb into other bracket xa minus xb. Okay, keep it as it is. Now this loss in energy, what will happen? See, energy, this is a law of conservation of energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is just converted from one form to another. So this loss in energy is due to the work done against the friction that is stored, that is the strain energy. So what is the work done against friction? Where this has energy gone, that is work done in the friction. So what is that work done against the friction? Force into displacement. How much is the force? That is the frictional force F. And how much is the displacement when object moves from position A to B? How much is the total displacement? XA plus XB. Now these two must be equal. Okay, to convert the energy from friction to work done. So equating C and D, what we are getting? 1/2 k into bracket XA plus XB into other bracket XA minus XB is equal to F into bracket XA plus XB. So these two terms will be cancelling out. So what is remaining? 1/2 k XA minus XB is equal to F. So what did you get? XA minus XB is equal to 2F upon K. Now what do you mean by this XA minus XB? This is reduction in amplitude from point A to B, that means in half cycle. Okay, thus loss in amplitude in half cycle is 2F upon K. Therefore, what is the loss in amplitude in full cycle? That is 4F upon K. So did you get the equation now? Reduction in amplitude per cycle is equal to 4F upon K, which is constant. Thus, in Coulomb damping or dry friction damping, the difference between any two successive amplitude is constant and is given by 4F upon K. So again, see this diagram. How much is the reduction here now? So from A to C, there is a reduction. Okay, how much is that reduction? 4F upon K. Okay, did you get the meaning now? What I told you, that you will understand it at the end of this lecture. Okay, so this was about Coulomb damping. Now, third type is structural damping, which is not there for syllabus, but just as a common sense or as a information. So this type of damping is due to intermolecular friction in the structure. Okay, that means molecule, whatever the molecules are moving inside the object. So that movement is opposed, and because of that internal friction of the molecules, the structural damping is present. Okay. Now, what is a stress strain diagram for a vibrating body? Okay, that is a straight line. But actually, whenever you are the loading and unloading, or you are observing the when you are taking the reading, okay, by increasing something, then by decreasing something, you know, because of the hysteresis loop, that is not possible. You will not get a straight line, but you will get a loop, and that loop is called as a hysteresis loop. And this damping is present due to that hysteresis loop only. Okay. Now, that fourth type of damping is non-linear or slip or interfacial damping. Okay. So this is, say, the machine elements are connected to various types of joints. Okay. And microscopic slip occurs in the interfaces of the machine elements, which causes the dissipation of the vibrational energy. And when the interface of the machine elements or parts in contact are under fluctuating load, then this type of damping is present. Okay, so larger the effective damping is there. Okay, larger is the energy dissipation, larger is the damping present in the system. So these last two dampings are not there for your syllabus. Okay, so now we conclude. What did we study in this study in this lecture? First, the types of, what do you mean by damped free vibration? What are the types of vibrations? Types of damping. Okay, so major, there are two types of damping which we are going to study. First is viscous damping. We are going to study in detail in further all 4 or 5 lectures. And today we have started and finished Coulomb damping or dry friction damping. Understood? Okay. So now in the next lecture, that is very, 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 very important, because we are going to cover complete theory of viscous damping, that is fluid dashpot damping. And the same part you will need it when you will learn unit number 2, that is forced vibration. See, the forced vibrations is completely, its fundamental is based on viscous damping. So in the next lecture, your theory must be covered. Okay, that you must understand the theory of viscous damping. Okay, so thank you very much. Let me stop this recording.